intro, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Turki, to introduce yourself. But
Sounds great.
hello, everyone. I'm Omar Christidis, the founder and CEO of Arabnet. Privileged to have you here with us on another edition of Ramadan Nights with new funds. We've had the privilege to interview a number of new venture capital funds and institutional investors. And we continue today with Turki Aljoaib, the managing partner of Rua Growth Fund. Turki recently actually returned to Saudi Arabia and to the region. We'll hear a little bit more about his background. And well, in fact, maybe we can start there, Turki. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the investment world, to starting this fund.
Sure. Well, first, it's a great pleasure being here, and thank you for having me. So I didn't have really a conventional, I guess, path getting into VC, and it's kind of a known thing that there is no conventional path getting into VC. But I graduated from USC. I guess that's a good way to start, in civil environmental engineering. I had planned to work in the US in construction, but I moved back to Saudi Arabia. It was kind of unplanned. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. My passion was in climate change, but I didn't like what I learned. It was mostly about water chemistry, air pollution, water treatment, but I was more on the prevention part. I was more on the renewable energy part and sustainability. So when I came back, I worked in the family business. It's an engineering firm. I worked as a junior environmental engineer, tried to give it one more shot. It took one visit to a wastewater treatment facility to know this is not for me. So within a couple months, I decided, you know what? Let me try to introduce new ideas in the family business. It's in the energy sector, construction, engineering, agriculture. I said, let's get back to my passion and see what I can do. At that time, I was researching and I discovered that the country was going through a transformation. That's when the new plans in 2014-15 were introduced about diversifying away from oil. And part of that was also diversifying away from oil when it comes to power generation, which was, heavily on oil and unsustainable at that time, in the long term, unsustainable. So I thought this was, possibly an opportunity to introduce a new idea in the family business. We were in the energy sector for a very long time. This is kind of a new energy sector boom. So that's the birth of sun capture. After I had, introduced the concept to the family business, my father supported me, and that's how sun capture was basically started, focusing on commercial solar energy services company. The other startup happened by coincidence. It's a funny story. I went to the supermarket, bought a box of basil, basically fresh, well, technically imported. And my father told me, that's expensive. You better cook the whole thing. Took 2 days and it went bad. And I didn't understand why that happened. And he told me because it's imported. I said, wait, in my undergrad, I had worked on a project in hydroponics. The campus cafeteria is full of hydroponically grown food within the campus. So I thought, why can't we reapply the same technology here? And took a lot of research. And we had initially planned to just develop a turnkey solution for farmers. And my father told me, I'll support you in this idea, but don't turn me into a farmer. But today, we are actually farmers and we're selling our produce locally in Sharqiya, where we focus on water intensive imported crops specifically. And it's basic, both kind of solved national problems. Like kale, leafy greens, romaine lettuce, different kinds of lettuces, different kinds of herbs, such as oregano, basil as well, and some vegetables and strawberry. So we basically, I saw these two companies as a way to solve two main national challenges, which is energy at the time, diversifying away from oil, and food security in the country, since a lot of it is imported, as well as water scarcity. So with that in mind, I did pursue my master's in what I was passionate about, which is renewable energy. It's a program called Green Technologies. So it's a renewable energy engineering program. And during my time in my master's at USC, I basically discovered this program called Technology Commercialization at the business school. I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like it would help me when I come back home and work on sun capture and desert agri. And it's half how to launch a startup, and the other half, which is really essential, how to evaluate opportunities as a VC. And it's an opportunity for both an entrepreneur and an investor to learn about both sides of the coin here, right? So that's when I discovered my new passion, which is, I loved basically solving problems, coming from an engineering background, solving problems with innovative solutions. And I thought, what better way to evaluate innovative solutions and support, innovative entrepreneurs and make the most impact is through VC. And I wanted to bring that back home. So I, through my network, met with the CEO of Wasul Bakhit. Took me a while to get to him, but he basically, at the time, coincidentally, was also had some VC background as well, and was at the time the head of OBC, which is an asset management firm. And we, talked shop and introduced me to Imena Group, and that's when we launched Rua Growth Fund. But it's easier said than done. The timing of launching the fund was on May 2020, and we all know May 2020 was probably not the best time to launch a VC fund. Literally, I was quarantined in my family house because I came from Riyadh, between the lawyers, compliance at OBIC, and the regulators, trying to launch a fund, not knowing what the fundraising process was going to be like. But we pushed through that challenge, and we officially launched operations earlier this year.
Looks super exciting, and I love your focus on climate change, or kind of forward-oriented businesses that are positive towards climate change. And I think we can see this in the discourse, especially today in the United States, in the Biden presidency, but even before then, and the importance of this for the youth. I'm curious if this is going to be part of your fund mandate to do some projects in this area. But that actually brings me to my next question, which is, yes, tell us a little bit more about the fund itself, what it does, what it's looking for, what kind of deals, the deal size. Give us a little bit more information on that.
Yeah, so when I came back in early 2019, we took a whole year. I took a whole year just really meeting with a lot of entrepreneurs, going to a lot of events, trying to just absorb the tech ecosystem, right? Just at the time, as I'm traveling around and just learning about the region. And of course, with the support of Imena Group, we developed a strategy where we thought, how can we have the most impact? To Imena, this is a new fund to them, and to me, that was my goal as well. And basically, we plan the fund strategy is to focus on the funding gap, which is talked about a lot. It's the growth stage. So that's where we are investing the majority of the fund. We do invest in early stage as well. And we focus on 3 tech verticals where we believe we can provide the most value through basically cooperation between OBIC, which is one of the first licensed asset management companies in Saudi Arabia, an institution in the financial sector, and Imena Group, an early investor in the tech ecosystem in the region here in MENA, bringing their venture capital experience as well and supporting their portfolio companies. We decided to focus on 3 tech verticals: online marketplaces, enterprise solutions and SaaS, and fintech. And when it comes to our deal size, ticket size, currently we're still fundraising. So for early opportunities, $3 million. But the fund thesis, just one last point about the fund thesis. So when I was doing basically my program at USC, I met with a lot of VCs, and I had done some deals there as well. And I learned basically one of the selling points of VCs is how do they support their portfolio companies? And one of the things that they, one of their selling points is how do they bring in their LPs to support, right? Their basically how they shape their strategy based on their LPs and based on what kind of companies there would be opportunities they'd be pursuing and supporting them. And that's what we wanted to do with the Rua Growth Fund as well, is bridge the gap between our LPs, give them visibility to the opportunities we invest in, as well as give them co-investment opportunities so they're vested when it comes to supporting the portfolio companies of Rua Growth Fund.
So Turki, you cut off just for a moment when you were telling me the number of the deal size. So if you could just repeat that.
Yes, of course. So when it comes to the average ticket size, $1 million for early stage and $3 million for growth stage. But that is changing as we increase the fund size.
Yeah, I mean, I'll push a little bit here on this number, because 3 million these days is like it's like a Series A, maybe.
I know.
Right?
I know.
I mean, if we look at some of the recent deals that we've seen, if you really want to play in the growth space, shouldn't you guys be writing tickets like, I mean, I think about the growth stage companies, Visita, Trucker, Uniphonic, Nana Direct. I mean, all these guys are raising, already have raised 15, 20 million. Their next round is going to be even bigger, right? Isn't the gap really in the $30 million range, 20 million, 10 million?
I would say yes, you're quite right. The gap is in the 10 million and above. And currently, we just had our first close, so we're still fundraising up until, I guess, early next year. And we'll see if we hit our target. And definitely our ticket size will grow proportionate to the fund size.
Well, great. We wish you the best of luck with that. And Khaldoon from Imina is a friend. And for those who may not know, we think about the early days of the .com, Arab.com era, and we think about Maktoob and Samihtou Khan, Fadi Ghandour. But really, if we go back 10 years before that, you can find Imina, you can find Khaldoon with, actually not Imina, but rather Arabia Online, really the first internet company in Arabia. So just a small kind of throwback to those days.
No, definitely. Just to add to your point, I mean, because I've had the experience and the privilege to be working with Khaldoon the last couple of years. After my father, who's my role model, I would say the two mentors that I'm very thankful to have is Mazen and Khaldoon as well. Amazing.
So now you're launching this fund in a context of so many new funds being launched. True. What really differentiates? What's going to be the competitive advantage or the thing that's going to pull entrepreneurs to come and take Rua's money?
Right. I think that our goal, and we've been successful with our first close, is to have a diversified LP base, where we are basically matching our sector focus with our LPs, and we have been very selective where we want our LPs to have vested interest, and all of them were very interested with the co-investment opportunities that we would be providing them, and that's where I believe we provide a strategic value. Beyond that, we also have, of course, the partnership, right? The collaboration between OBIC and Imina Group, having those two kind of entities coming together, joining forces, I think provides a lot of value as well.
Interesting. And could those co-investments get to that growth stage? I mean, one of the questions that I have is, and this is something you've been able to do effectively, and a few others have been able to do effectively, convince the family business or family office to invest in tech or venture, right? And yet we see the vast majority of family offices in our region and family businesses hesitant to invest in tech or to really collaborate with startups, right? I mean, I was recently talking to a family office that told me our modus operandi is we go get best in class from London or Paris or New York and do a joint venture and bring those guys here. And I was trying to explain about the challenges of not really bringing the value to MENA, the growth potential to MENA. So I'm curious how you see the role of family offices changing over time as you're so close to so many and you're working directly on them as LPs.
Yeah, well, the two things. I think that's a very good question. Number one of my selling points to the family office or to the family businesses in Saudi, who are the institutions, is that I see them as gatekeepers, right? They have the access to these markets and they can support these entrepreneurs that are building businesses that could disrupt their businesses as well, but could be complementary, right? If they are joining forces. So what I usually tell them is, think about Rua Growth Funds as your eyes and ears in early stage disruptive technologies. This is an opportunity where you can have visibility over what's coming out, and you can even contribute and invest directly in opportunities that you believe you can provide value. The other way that I think family offices can really be helpful is by adopting the venture studio model. I think that there is a lot to unlock, when it comes to sector experience, domain experience, access to market, that they can, bring in a lot of the young Saudi entrepreneurs to learn about their business, to be able to try out new ideas. And that takes me back to what I did in my family business, to be honest. That's one of the things. I wanted to do something on my own. I kind of for 2-3 months, tried to be a tire salesman. That's a long story. I'll get to that later. But I came back to the family business. I thought, hey, here's this infrastructure. I have the opportunity and the privilege to bring new ideas. And of course, they have to make sense, from a business standpoint, but they have to build on what's already there. And that taught me, basically, that's why I can talk to these family offices and tell them, this is what I've done, and this is what I think, where you guys can provide real value to these young entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna switch pace
Sure.
a little bit, and I have a bunch of kind of quick questions to ask you, and I will try to ask you to keep your answers short, 30 seconds or a minute. And as I mentioned to you before, there are questions which are like, tell me the time the most of, or the number one thing. And actually, let's dive right in. And I'll ask you the first question. What is the number one challenge that you believe entrepreneurs underestimate?
I would say the number one challenge is geographic expansion. A lot of times you get an entrepreneur that says, I'm going to be in X number of cities in a couple of years. And, it's great to have that ambition, but it's good to have kind of the patience to make sure that your home base, is defensible, and then you can move on to other markets.
But isn't that partly driven by the like grow mentality of
Yes.
VCs?
Yes, that's true. And that's one thing that I've learned is, sustainable growth, right, is very important, as opposed to just irresponsible, if you will, growth. It could lose focus. Yeah. An entrepreneur could lose focus and lose what they've built for the last few years.
Sustainable growth. I love that. I don't know how much tech encourages that overall, but I'll take it. Okay, another question. Tell me one thing that would give me a common mistake that entrepreneurs often make when approaching investors.
A common mistake. A lot of times you would have entrepreneurs hesitant to share materials. I like to look at a pitch deck, and I don't want to be surprised with a long form pitch deck in the I would say meeting. So I think that's one thing, is not having kind of a watered down pitch deck that I can't really understand or get that much out of it. We're here to basically expedite the process for us and for them, so they don't waste their time with an investor that just their startup doesn't fit their mandate, for example, or their thesis. So it's good to know as much as possible early on to make a decision, so the entrepreneur can move on to the next investor.
So what would your advice be to entrepreneurs on this point? Do your research, or beyond that, what else? Oh,
definitely. Yes. Do your research when it comes to meeting with investors, but also be more transparent and open initially, and share as much as the investors asking, right? If they're asking for a data room, if they're asking for a complete pitch deck, not just a few slides about the startup, about the company.
And is there no risk that you will present too much information?
I don't think so. I think that I'm a very open person, to be honest, and I very collaborative. So that's how I think. There are two, kind of I guess way of thinking about it. Even in Silicon Valley, they say, either be very secretive or be very open, right? Investors don't like to sign NDAs and don't like to jump through hoops to get to know what the startup is doing. So I think that there is a balance, definitely, but at the very least, we should know what the business is doing and what the market is pursuing, and basic KPIs, historical KPIs, and traction.
Great. Another question. Tell us about a early stage regional startup that you recently encountered and that you thought, this is really interesting. This is very cool. And tell us about the trend that is underlying why you think it's cool or exciting.
I would talk about our first investment portfolio company, Karasti.
Do it.
Yeah, I mean.
What is it? Sorry, I missed that.
Karasti. It's a cars as a service model based out of the UAE. And the trend is basically car ownership is going down all around the world, and people are looking for new ways to, not necessarily purchase a car, but own a car, use a car, right, or travel. And I think that in this region, mainly, there aren't a lot of alternatives, or I would say, alternative that besides owning a car or financing it. So cars as a service is a great kind of Middle East, if you will, option that I think is filling a gap here in the region, especially the GCC and Saudi Arabia.
So there's a lot of talk about cars as a service, or let's say transit as a service more broadly, globally. And we've seen the car manufacturers themselves make forays into this.
Right.
Do you think that this will be a play for entrepreneurs to build an independent standalone company, or do you think this is going to be the realm of the incumbents, the large auto manufacturers?
Well, there's a lot of, I think regulation that, I mean, think about Tesla, right? In the US, they had to fight to be able to not go through the dealership, model. So I think that, for example, Porsche, I think has been, or Volkswagen has been exploring cars as a service as an option, but I don't think it would be possible in the US due to just, the regulation there. So I think there is, potentially an opportunity for new entrants.
Okay, great, love it. Okay, so my next question is the same question, but a global startup that you have seen or read about recently and that you're like, this is really cool.
Flipfit. I don't know if you've heard of it. They just raised their seed. It's basically social shopping married with TikTok, if you will. So it's these, or Instagram Reels. It's like going through Instagram Reels or TikTok and being able to purchase whatever is being reviewed in that very short clip.
Beautiful. So we're talking about the integration of content and commerce.
Exactly.
I love this. I think that this is the future of commerce, personally. I don't know about the content side of things. The publishers are all dying, and the quality of content overall around the world is diminishing. But the idea of leveraging audiences to really drive that kind of e-commerce is super interesting. Very cool. Okay. What is the #1 challenge facing the region's startup ecosystem today? And I'll give you a couple of options, or you can pick other and tell me one that you think is other. Talent, funding, regulation, access to customers, or other.
Okay, I think that, having a Saudi focus for Rua Growth Fund, I would say talent. And when it comes to, depending on the sector, like fintech, for example, it would be regulation, right? It's a challenge to expand into other markets when you're a fintech startup. But yeah, that I would say those two. Okay,
yeah. Look, regulatory harmonization across markets is something that is going to be a stumbling block for the growth of MENA's tech industry unless we fix it.
Definitely. It'll be a game changer if it's fixed, for sure.
So, but right now the countries are all too busy competing with each other to really have an open markets approach. Everybody wants to be the center of the startup ecosystem. Okay, I have 2 more quick ones for you. What is one thing that would make you immediately dismiss a startup, right? They came in, they started to talk to you or something, whatever it is, and you would say, okay, nope. And it could be something about the team, the company, the pitch, the way they carry themselves. But what is something that would really be a no-no for you?
In a meeting, I would say just not knowing your business, I guess, not knowing, how to deliver what the value proposition of your company is. I think that's one thing. But even before then, I think
broadly outside of the meeting context.
Even before that, I would say the market size. If the market doesn't make sense for a company to be venture backed, I think that's a quick no.
Okay.
If the market is too small.
Okay, great. And my last question, and here I'll just turn it to the audience and say, if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A feature, so we'll make sure to ask them. And my last quick fire question for you is, tell us about a time you made an investment and you lost money and what you learned from it.
Okay.
And if it's not an investment, you can tell us about a deal that you made, but tell us about a time where you
I can tell you about a failure.
Investment. Or a failure, sure.
Yeah. Well, it was an investment in time and some money. It was that trying to be a tire salesman for a brief moment. And that tells you something about timing. That's what I learned about timing. So when I came back, I wanted to be entrepreneurial, do my own thing. I had a connection with some someone in the north, basically in California, who was one of the largest tire dealers in North America, and he was selling tires, across the world. So I thought I could, figure out a way to basically, there was a big margin compared to what's being sold in the market. But 2 months in, oil crisis happened, and all the tires that were being sold in the country slashed their prices. So timing is important.
For sure. And so you were trying to sell this. How? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, it took me 2-3 months. I basically just studied the market, went into a lot of the tire stores. I just was basically purchasing tires from the US and just shipping them to Saudi Arabia and selling them to some of the dealers in Saudi Arabia.
Interesting.
It was that simple. It was a kind of an opportunistic thing that I could just put through my network, and I thought it was something to try.
Well, I think some of the best businesses are the most boring looking from the outside.
Yeah.
And here by best, I say most commercially lucrative. One time I was on a flight next to a gentleman, and he was telling me about his incredibly successful business selling nails, like screwdrivers and nails, but specifically ones for construction. So large scale ones. And he was like, yeah, I'm in the screws business. I was like, this is the weirdest business I've ever heard. Okay, super interesting. And thanks for your quick answers on all of those. If I turn back to something a little bit more open-ended and ask you, we've seen a number of trends that have swept MENA, especially post-COVID. We had a bunch that were really hot. The food delivery space, so a whole bunch of investments, acquisitions, cloud kitchens. Now we have Kitopi going out and announcing a $200 million fundraise. KCON did a 20 million, if I'm saying their name right. If we miss the boat on some of these, what are some of the other hot trends, or even better, trends that are about to be hot that you think we should be aware
of? Buy now, pay later is I think on the spotlight just recently.
Yeah, and but that one might also be played out already between Tabby and between this Tamara $100 million round.
True. Very good point. I think let's see, what could be a trend that's coming? You know what? It's the I think the enablers of other sectors, like for example e-commerce, and you know what it is? It's a company like FlowSpace in California, which is basically renting out shelf space for e-commerce. So it's providing the service kind of like Amazon, where you can just rent out a shelf space for whatever you're selling, and handling the logistics. I think that would be a great trend moving forward, as logistics is still a challenge for a lot of basically startups that are in e-commerce or food delivery or what have you.
Definitely enablers, and certainly in e-commerce is a big one. Okay, so look, you launched your fund in Saudi, and your focus is Saudi. I'm curious how you see the Saudi market developing. We are starting to see bigger and bigger rounds. Some people are talking maybe there's deal inflation, there's big valuations, and certainly it's the biggest market. But I'm curious how you see the sector developing, how you see the sector today, and how you expect it to develop in the coming period.
Yeah, I think that with a lot of the support that's coming in through a lot of the fund-to-fund semi-government programs is allowing a lot of investors to be take riskier bets. Investing in venture capital as an asset class traditionally wasn't an asset class that investors in Saudi Arabia invest in. So I think that with also basically a lot of the something we talked about before this call, how quickly the government is changing a lot of the regulation, making it easy to start, a bit easier for entrepreneurs to launch their startup. I think that you'll see a lot of both capital coming in as well as entrepreneurs, and that's basically in the short term will take some time to balance out kind of the issue that you mentioned when it comes to valuations. But I think overall it'll be good in the long run.
Okay, and someone actually did ask a question just now, asking about nostalgia for renewables. But I'll take this maybe, and I'll ask further. given that today renewables is certainly a core part of Vision 2030, you see some interesting opportunities there. Are you looking at some interesting opportunities there, or is that a space that's now in the past for you?
Yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily a space, because we do focus on tech and tech-enabled businesses. So I think we lean more towards software-based, but I saw a couple of, or I would say, solar O&M provided, but the market isn't there yet. Talking about renewables, so I think it will take some time.
Okay, great. So we have a question actually from a colleague VC here, asking what sectors will you focus on for the fund? And I think you had mentioned them, but I think maybe we lost you in one of those moments.
Sure. Well, we're industry agnostic, but we focus on 3 tech verticals: online marketplaces, fintech, and enterprise solutions and SaaS.
Okay. And within those domains, anything in particular? Are there areas that you're more bullish on? And are there areas that you're bearish on? Are there sectors that you think we're not getting anywhere near this one?
No, I think the investment period is 4 years, so you never know how things change. So we stuck with industry agnostic, and we're pretty optimistic when it comes to what's happening at during the investment period, depending on the time.
Okay, and you mentioned fintech. There's so many fintech funds right now.
Yes.
Do we need more?
I think time will tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my last question I'll take from the audience and also add my twist on it, which is what next MENA startup do you believe is on the exit road? And beyond that, I would say, how do you see the prospects for exits? Today, there's a lot of VCs, and there have been few really major exits. We've seen Anghami and SPAC listing. We've seen the e-grocery acquisition of InstaShop.
Yeah.
InstaShop. So I'm curious what you see but those are small relative to the number of $100 million businesses that we have today. And we didn't see Spotify and Deezer acquire Anghami. So I'm curious how you see opportunities for exits and eventually liquidity for your LPs.
Yeah, I think one of the exit that I'm looking for right now is potentially Jahez, right? It would be great if Jahez, pursues their plan to IPO. I think that would be amazing for the tech ecosystem here in Saudi Arabia. So that's the one I'm keeping my eye on for sure. Okay,
and beyond the SPACs and IPOs, which there's still a lot of gray area around these, right? It's not 100% clear how it's all going to turn out. If it's all going to be very good. Do you see other viable, really strong options for exits and for liquidity?
Potentially. I mean, we kind of like how in the last couple of years, we saw, a lot of support going into early stage investing. We're going to see support going into growth, as in these last, I would say in the last year, and then private equity. And I think that will facilitate a lot of the secondary markets trade, I would say, and potentially a lot of the exits for our LPs.
Okay, I think I am already starting to hear the PE players start to look at this space very clearly, and the numbers have gotten large enough that they make sense now for private equity, right? If you want to deploy $50 or $100 million in a single transaction, MENA Tech can now allow you to. It's amazing that when we started this business, you could not write a check that was bigger than $1 or $2 million, and today people are looking to raise 100, and so incredible. And I'm sure maybe in the next 10 years we'll be having another conversation. We'll say people are looking to raise billions, and tech has devoured the world.
I think that's
thank
possible.
You so much for joining us.
Thank you so much
for joining us in this session. A pleasure to connect with you, and
thank
you to the audience for joining us. We wish you the best of luck with the rest of your fundraise, and we'll look forward to hearing success stories coming out of Rua and your investments, and to having you again with us in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Omar, and everyone who tuned out of their Ramadan shows, taking their time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Perfect. Take care. Bye-bye.